Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome to some more StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void. Now what you just saw was actually a recording from the live stream just a couple of days ago, and currently we are in the replay of that match. What I want to be talking about today is a couple of minor tips that can hopefully help you out in the Zerg vs Zerg matchup. I mean, to be honest, Zerg vs Zerg is one of those matchups that is 99% of the time going to be decided by the micro of both players, right? If you micro better than your opponent and you manage to, not run your own Zergling into his Banelings and you manage to run your Banelings into his Zerglings, generally speaking, you're going to be the one that ends up coming out ahead. And there's a couple of minor things that can really help out in that regard. Now, I want to be showing you the entire game just so you understand the backstory of what exactly has been going on. But I'm not gonna lie, this is a relatively standard setup right now for me in the Zerg vs Zerg matchup. I mean, I know for 99% of the cases, in particular like below Master League or so, you will be ending the match within the first, let's say 8 to 9 or 10 minutes. I mean, for me personally as well, that is going to be the case in many scenarios, just because I either miss micro or my opponent miss micros and the game ends there. Now, if you watch the professional level StarCraft 2, you watch the highest of highest level StarCraft 2 play, the Zerg vs Zerg matchup, it's very dynamic. They go past the Baneling style, or they, transition into either Roaches or Mutalisks, or they go into Lurker, or you go into Brute Lord, Ultras, and all that sort of shenanigans, just because both players are evenly matched as far as the micro goes. They're going to be able to go up against each other and not really make any kind of massive mistakes that are going to be game ending, at which point they're slowly but surely adding on workers, and eventually they can go ahead and transition out to something else. But for most of us out there on the StarCraft 2 ladder, I'm not gonna lie, it is all gonna come down to the Zergling Baneling micro, and in, a couple of scenarios, you can really make yourself get a minor advantage just by making some smart decisions. So in this particular match, I am gonna be going for the Zerglings. First and foremost, I'm going to be getting the Zergling speed, and then I'm going to be transitioning towards the Baneling nest as well. Now, I'm going to be spending my first 100 gas on the Baneling nest, and I'm going to be spending my second 50 gas on the, first 100 gas rather on the metabolic boost, the Zergling speed, and then the second 50 gas on the Baneling nest, like as soon as possible, not trying to really delay any of that. Now, most of the time in the Zerg vs Zerg matchup, you're going to be able to cast most of the game or watch most of the game from the production depth alone, because most of it is all going to come down to a, very similar build, a very standard setup. Now, in most scenarios of most of the games actually that I coach people in the StarCraft 2 scene, I will notice that people aren't going for that third base as nearly fast enough. You can take the third base relatively early on into the game, and I would actually argue right now that I could already be taking it at this point in the game. I mean, I'm not going to be able to get my Queen and Jacks off just yet, and I'm also not going to be able to really spend my minerals. So that is exactly the reason why I'm already sending a drone out to the third base. I know very well that it's going to be a bunch of micro that will be involved very shortly, and that it may end up me, canceling that third, but I may as well just spend the minerals for the time being. Another little thing that you see me do right now is get the evolution chamber, and the reason for the evolution chamber at this point in the game is so I can start up the +1 melee upgrade. Sometimes I tend to go for the double upgrades, sometimes I go for the single upgrades, but it really makes the Zergling Baneling micro significantly easier. Now, as you can see, my opponent instead decides to opt for the lair. Now, he's trying to transition, which, happens every now and then, right? It happens every now and then. It looks like he has delayed his Zergling speed a little bit as well in favor of this whole shenanigans, but that turns out to not be really that big of a deal in this point, or at this point in the game. Now, I am noticing this, okay? If you are playing at a higher level, you must assume right now that your opponent is gonna go for a third base. And if you don't see your opponent going for a third base, you must be aware of the fact that something fishy is going on. Like, there's no reason for him not to be taking a third base right now, unless he has plans to do something else, right? Anyhow. So first and foremost, I would highly recommend getting the +1 attack upgrade in many scenarios, just because it makes the Zergling Baneling micro significantly easier. And basically what you're trying to wait for is the +1 attack upgrade. Now, I do see him take a third right now, but I'm fully aware that that is very late. So I start pushing in here. I want to pick off this queen if I can. Nice little bit of micro there, getting transfused off. I don't really want to be fighting until my +1/+1 is done, ideally, right? Anyway. One of the things that I see very seldomly being utilized is, these little bushes right here in the middle part of the map. These little bushes that are in the middle part of the map, and I'm gonna pause the game for a second, basically provide me vision while my opponent is going to be blocked of vision, right? So if I morph my Banelings in the middle of these bushes, and they're pretty hard to spot on this particular map, but they are on pretty much every single map out there, These little bushes are sort of like line of sight blockers. So if we, for example, have a look at his Zerglings, because they are going to be coming in very, very shortly, you will notice that he does not see across the bush. So if you have a quick look here, even though he gets closer and closer to these bushes, he is not having any vision of this shenanigans whatsoever. And what I would highly recommend everyone to do is to try and make sure you morph your Banelings in the bush or right behind it, as you can see I'm doing right now. Because I've got full vision of everything that is going on, as I've got units on, you know, either end of this shenanigans. But my opponent lacks the vision here in the middle of the map. And he's gonna end up rolling the Zerglings into the Banelings. Oh! He couldn't see the morphing in Banelings because of the little bush thing. So first and foremost, consider going for the melee upgrades. In this particular case, I decided to go for a second Evo chamber as well to get the carapace upgrade after analyzing that my opponent went for such a late third base. I wanted to make sure that I would be able to cancel that, because if he's going Roaches, he would then be forced to go for a 2 basal in. If he would be going Mutalisks, I know that I can easily beat him as well if he's only going to be off of 4 gases with the Zerglings with double upgrades. So that's the reason why I'm going for that second Evo as well. But I would pretty much always recommend going for the single melee upgrade if you are confident in your Zergling Baneling shenanigans. And secondly, and probably more importantly, whenever there are bushes nearby and you are morphing in the Banes, definitely make sure you are morphing them in right there. And other than that, I want to thank you all very much so for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I will see you in the next one.